The warm glow of the streetlights filtered through the rain-speckled windows of the small diner on Maple Street. Inside, the scent of brewing coffee and fresh bread mingled with the quiet murmurs of the late-evening crowd. Jared glanced at the clock hanging crookedly on the wall. It was almost 7 p.m. Across from him, his 7-year-old daughter Lily was perched on the seat, her eyes wide with anticipation as she scanned the simple menu. Jared's hand twitched nervously in his coat pocket, fingers brushing the small handful of coins he'd scraped together. Between his part-time job at the garage and cleaning shifts at the community center, the money was barely enough to cover the rent and utilities this month, let alone treat Lily to dinner out. But tonight was special. Lily had finally learned to play her favorite piano song perfectly, and Jared had promised they'd celebrate with ice cream and grilled cheese sandwiches at the diner. Lily pointed excitedly at the grilled cheese on the menu, her voice soft but filled with hope. "Can I please have the grilled cheese and a scoop of vanilla ice cream?" Daddy Jared forced a smile, trying to mask the tightening in his chest. "Of course, sweetheart." He gave the waitress his order, just a plate for Lily and a glass of water for himself. As the waitress walked away, Jared looked down at the table. His stomach growled quietly, reminding him that he hadn't eaten since breakfast. But seeing Lily's happy smile was enough. Across the room, a woman sat alone at a booth, a cup of tea untouched before her. Claire was a businesswoman used to boardroom meetings and five-star dinners. But tonight, something about this modest diner and the small family caught her attention. She watched quietly as Jared pushed the food toward Lily, who eagerly ate every bite, savoring it like it was the best meal she'd ever had. Jared sipped his water slowly, eyes never leaving his daughter, the sacrifice clear in his every move. The rain continued to patter against the window, a soft soundtrack to a quiet act of love and sacrifice that might change everything. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows over the small town of Willow Creek. The streets were quiet, the usual chatter of neighbors replaced by the gentle rustling of leaves in the soft breeze. At the corner of Maple and Fifth, the modest music school stood like a beacon of hope for many children in the neighborhood. Today, it was especially important to 7-year-old Lily and her father, Jared. Inside the tiny recital room, Lily sat at the piano bench, her small fingers trembling slightly over the keys. Her music teacher, Mrs. Simmons, smiled encouragingly from the corner. "Okay, Lily, whenever you're ready," Mrs. Simmons said gently. Lily took a deep breath, closed her eyes for a moment, and then began to play. The melody was simple but full of heart. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. At first her fingers faltered, but as the notes flowed, confidence blossomed. She played the song perfectly, her eyes lighting up as the last note lingered in the air. "Wonderful," Mrs. Simmons clapped softly. "You did it? That was beautiful, Lily." Lily turned to the door, eyes shining with pride. Waiting there was Jared, a man in his early 30s with tired but kind eyes, his dark hair a little messy from a long day's work. "You were amazing, sweetheart," Jared said as she ran into his arms. His embrace was warm but gentle, careful not to crush her small frame. Lily giggled. "Did you hear me, Daddy? I played it all by myself." Jared smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. "I did. You worked so hard and it showed. I'm really proud of you." As they walked out of the building together, the clouds began to gather overhead. The first drops of rain started to fall, soft but steady. Jared pulled his worn jacket tighter around him and held Lily's hand firmly. "Let's get you out of this rain," he said. They hurried toward the nearby diner, a humble place with checkered tablecloths and the smell of fresh bread always in the air. It was their favorite spot for little celebrations, pancakes on Sundays, hot chocolate after school, and tonight, something special. Lily looked up at him with hopeful eyes. "Daddy, can we get ice cream tonight like you promised?" Jared's heart sank a little. Money was tight this week. Between missed shifts and rising bills, there was barely enough for rent, let alone treats. But he wanted to give Lily the world, especially tonight. "Of course, Lily," he said, squeezing her hand. "We'll have ice cream and grilled cheese, too." Lily's smile brightened in, and she skipped ahead, her little boots splashing in puddles. Jared followed, keeping a steady pace despite the chill creeping into his bones. Inside the diner, the warm light wrapped around them like a blanket. They slid into a booth by the window, the rain streaking the glass as cars passed by. Jared pulled out a crumpled $10 bill and a few coins from his pocket, counting carefully. He knew he needed to make it stretch for both of them, even if that meant sacrificing his own meal. The waitress came over, a young woman with a gentle smile. Jared ordered a grilled cheese sandwich and vanilla ice cream for Lily and just a glass of water for himself. Lily's eyes sparkled as she waited, watching the rain outside. Jared watched her, feeling a mix of pride and worry. "You know, Lily," he said quietly, "sometimes grown-ups have to make tough choices, but I promise no matter what, I'll always make sure you're taken care of." Lily looked up, her gaze steady. "I know, Daddy. You're the best." The food arrived soon after, and Lily eagerly dug in, savoring every bite. Jared nibbled on the sandwich crust, making sure she had enough. Outside, the rain continued to fall, but inside the diner, a small world of love and sacrifice was unfolding. Across the room, seated alone at a corner table, a woman watched quietly. Claire had come here to escape the stress of her high-powered life board meetings, endless calls, and the pressure of maintaining a perfect image. But tonight, her attention was captured by the father and daughter in the booth. She saw Jared's tired eyes, the careful way he watched Lily, and the unspoken promise hanging between them. The simple act of love in a world that often demanded so much. Claire sipped her tea, slowly feeling something stir inside her, a desire to help, to be part of a story bigger than business deals and contracts. The rain kept falling outside, but in that small diner, a seed of something new had been planted. The clatter of dishes and soft hum of conversation filled the cozy diner. Neon signs flickered gently outside the rain-streaked windows, casting colorful reflections on the wooden tables. The smell of frying bread and melting cheese wrapped warmly around the small space, making it feel like a refuge from the gloomy night. Jared and Lily sat snugly in their booth, the flickering candle on the table casting a soft glow on their faces. Lily's small hands clutched the vanilla ice cream cup as if it were the most precious treasure. Her cheeks were flushed from excitement and the warmth of the diner. Jared pushed his plate closer to Lily, his eyes fixed on her eager face. "Here, sweetie," he said softly, sliding the grilled cheese sandwich across the table. "Eat up." Lily looked at the sandwich, then at her dad, confusion flickering across her bright eyes. "But Daddy, you're not eating," she said, tilting her head. Jared smiled gently but shook his head. "I want you to have enough. You've been working so hard, and you deserve this. I'm fine." Lily hesitated, then shook her head stubbornly. "But you're hungry too." Jared reached over and ruffled her hair. "I'm okay. Seeing you happy is enough for me." As Lily took her first bite, savoring the melted cheese and toasted bread, Jared's stomach tightened with hunger. He swallowed the pang quietly, not wanting to spoil the moment. Across the room, Claire sat at her corner table, her tea untouched, as she watched the small scene unfold. Her eyes lingered on Jared's gentle smile, the way he sacrificed his own needs without hesitation. Something about the quiet strength of this man stirred a deep feeling in her chest, admiration, respect, and something softer, almost like hope. She had come here tonight to escape her own pressures, to forget the endless meetings, the cold decisions that made her life a series of transactions. But here was a man who reminded her that some things were priceless: love, sacrifice, family. Claire's fingers tightened around her cup as she resolved to learn more about this man, to understand the story behind those tired eyes and unwavering kindness. Meanwhile, Jared watched Lily finish her sandwich and take a spoonful of ice cream. Her happiness was contagious, and for a moment the worries about bills, rent, and work slipped away. But the ache in his stomach was a sharp reminder of reality. "Do you want more ice cream?" he asked, hoping to keep the moment alive. Lily shook her head, licking her lips. "No, thank you, Daddy. This is perfect." Jared nodded, squeezing her hand gently. "All right, let's finish up and get you home." As they prepared to leave, Claire stood slowly from her seat. She hesitated, then walked over to their booth. "Excuse me," she said softly, careful not to startle them. "I couldn't help but notice how much you care for your daughter." Jared looked up, a little surprised. Lily peeked out from behind his arm, curious. Claire," the woman said, offering a small smile. "And I just wanted to say that it's rare to see a father who puts his child first like that." Jared smiled politely, unsure what to say. Claire continued, "If you ever need anything or just someone to talk to, I'm around." With that, she returned to her table, leaving Jared and Lily with a lingering warmth that wasn't just from the diner's heater. As they stepped out into the now-light drizzle, Jared looked down at Lily and whispered, "Well, find a way, Lily. Always." Lily nodded, her small hand clasped tightly in his. The rain fell gently, but inside their hearts, hope had found a place to grow. Claire sat back at her corner table, stirring her untouched tea absent-mindedly. Outside, the drizzle had softened to a mist, the city lights blurred like watercolor strokes through the rain-speckled window. Her mind replayed the scene she had just witnessed, a father worn but unwavering, giving up his own meal so his daughter could eat. The simplicity of the act struck her deeper than she expected. She took a slow breath, feeling the quiet ache in her chest soften. In her world of glass towers and boardrooms, decisions were made with cold calculation. But here in this humble diner, she had glimpsed something far more powerful. Pure love sacrifice without expectation and hope. Claire's eyes drifted to the empty chair across from her. For years, she had built walls around herself, hiding behind status and success. The loneliness that came with it was a price she had long accepted until now. The little girl's bright smile, the way Jared looked at her with such tenderness, despite his tired eyes, it reminded Claire of something she had lost touch with: genuine connection. She realized that sometimes the most profound strength wasn't in wealth or power, but in the quiet, everyday acts of love. Claire sipped her now lukewarm tea and made a decision. She would find a way to reach out, not because she wanted to change Jared's life with money or favors, but because she was drawn to the humanity he represented. Maybe, just maybe, she could learn something from him. And perhaps in helping him, she might heal a part of herself that had long been neglected. The diner's soft lights flickered as a gentle breeze rustled the door. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the streets gleaming with possibility. Claire smiled to herself, feeling for the first time in a long while a quiet flicker of hope. The next evening, Jared found himself back at the same diner, the familiar warmth wrapping around him like a small comfort against the chill outside. Lily sat beside him, chatting animatedly about her day at school and her plans for the weekend. Jared smiled but couldn't shake a nagging worry at the back of his mind. Money was tight and every dollar counted. He folded his hands on the table, trying to focus on Lily's bright eyes and the innocent excitement she carried. When their order arrived, a simple meal of sandwiches and milkshakes, Jared dug into his pocket to pay. But before he could reach for his wallet, the waitress approached with a gentle smile. "Your bill's already taken care of, sir," she said softly, handing him the receipt. Jared blinked, glancing around the diner, but no one met his gaze. He started, but the waitress only smiled kindly. A generous customer wanted to do something nice. Jared's heart skipped. It was the same warm feeling he'd sensed the night before, the quiet kindness of someone who had noticed his struggle but didn't want to intrude. Lily looked up at him, her face bright with curiosity. "Daddy, did someone pay for our food?" Jared smiled, squeezing her hand. "Yes, sweetheart. Someone very kind." As they left the diner, Jared glanced back toward the corner table where Claire had sat. The seat was empty, but a napkin with a small, neat signature caught his eye. It read simply, "C." He folded the napkin carefully into his pocket, a new spark of hope glowing within. That night, as Lily fell asleep with a contented smile, Jared sat by her bedside and whispered, "We're not alone, Lily. Someone out there believes in us." And somewhere miles away, Claire smiled quietly to herself, knowing she had taken the first step toward a connection neither of them yet fully understood. The next morning, Jared woke early, the sunlight streaming softly through the curtains. After getting Lily ready for school, he decided to take her to the small neighborhood grocery store to pick up some essentials. It was a rare moment of calm in their busy lives. As Jared carefully browsed the aisles, making a list in his mind, he suddenly heard a voice behind him. "Excuse me, do you know if these apples are good today?" Turning, Jared found himself face to face with Claire. She looked just as surprised to see him as he was to see her. For a brief moment, the noisy world around them seemed to quiet. Claire smiled warmly, the same kindness shining in her eyes that Jared remembered from the diner. "I think they're fresh," Jared replied, gesturing toward the apples. "I picked mine carefully for my daughter." Claire nodded, glancing at the basket Jared was pushing. "You have a lovely daughter." Jared's cheeks flushed slightly. "Thank you. She's my world." They stood there for a moment, the ordinary grocery store aisles turning into a backdrop for something unexpected, a connection beginning to form. "Would you like some help with your groceries?" Claire offered gently. Jared hesitated but then nodded. "I'd appreciate that." Together they walked through the store, sharing quiet conversation about life's challenges and small joys. Neither mentioned their recent encounter at the diner, but an unspoken understanding passed between them. As they reached the checkout, Claire pulled out her card and insisted on paying for Jared's groceries. No, Jared began to protest, but Claire's smile stopped him. Please consider it a small thank you for the kindness you showed your daughter. Jared looked at her, humbled and grateful. As they parted ways outside, Claire said softly, maybe we'll see each other again. Jared watched her walk away, feeling something he hadn't felt in a long time, hope. Lily tugged at his sleeve, holding out a small apple. Daddy, look, this one's perfect. Jared smiled, realizing that sometimes the smallest moments could lead to the biggest changes. The late afternoon sun cast a warm glow over the little park bench where Jared and Claire had ended up sitting, their grocery bags resting beside them. Lily was happily playing nearby with a few other children, her laughter ringing like music through the air. For the first time in a long while, Jared felt a quiet ease settle within him. Claire's presence was calming, like a gentle reminder that not all the world was burdened with hardship. After a few moments of comfortable silence, Claire turned to him, her eyes kind and curious. You know, I've always admired parents who do it all alone. It's not easy. Jared gave a small, weary smile. You're right about that. Sometimes it feels like I'm barely keeping my head above water. He glanced toward Lily, who was now chasing a butterfly with pure delight. She's the reason I keep going. But it's hard working 2 jobs, paying the bills, making sure she never feels like she's missing out. Claire nodded slowly, sensing the weight behind his words. I guess people don't always see the struggles behind the smiles, Jared continued, voice softening. Some days I skip meals so she can eat. Sometimes I worry I'm not enough. Claire reached out gently, placing a hand on his arm. You're doing more than enough. It takes courage to keep going, to love so fiercely with everything you have. Jared looked at her, gratitude shining in his eyes. Thank you. That means more than you know. For the first time since they met, the walls Jared had built around himself began to crumble. They talked about dreams and fears, about the tough days and the moments of unexpected joy. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the park, Jared realized something had shifted. In Claire, he had found not just a witness to his struggles, but a companion willing to listen, to understand. Lily ran back, breathless and smiling. Daddy, look what I found, Jared laughed, lifting her into his arms. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Claire watched them, her heart quietly touched by their bond. Maybe, she said softly, we can help each other find the strength to keep going. Jared nodded, hope blooming anew. Sometimes a shared story was the first step toward healing and towards something beautiful yet to come. A few days had passed since their park conversation, but Claire's words still lingered in Jared's mind. He'd replayed their talk more than once while walking to his evening shift, the way she listened without judgment, the warmth in her voice. Now they sat together again, this time at a small coffee shop near Lily's school. Claire had invited him, insisting it was just a quick catch-up while Lily was in class. Jared almost said no, but something in her voice, a blend of sincerity and something softer, made him agree. He sipped his coffee carefully, and not used to drinks that didn't come from home-brewed leftovers. I've been thinking about what you said, Claire began, gently stirring her tea. About working 2 jobs, barely getting by. Jared gave a tight smile, his guard instinctively rising. It's what I have to do. I know, she said, and I admire that, truly. But what if you didn't have to do it alone? He looked up, eyes cautious. I own a few businesses. Claire continued, her tone casual, but her eyes locked on his. And one of them needs someone like you. Someone responsible, dependable. It's a warehouse admin role. Steady hours, benefits, better pay. I could get you in. Jared blinked, unsure how to respond. The offer felt too sudden, too generous. I don't mean to overstep, Claire added quickly. You've got pride, I see that, but I also see how much you sacrifice. Maybe this is just a hand being extended, not a handout. Jared's shoulders tensed slightly. I appreciate it, really. But I've never taken help like that before. I wouldn't want anyone thinking I only became your friend to get something. Claire smiled softly. Then don't take it as help. Take it as a thank you for being the kind of father who puts his daughter first. You've done more with less than most people ever could. Jared looked down at his cup, the warmth in his hands suddenly feeling heavy. He wasn't used to kindness coming without strings, without a debt to repay. I'll think about it, he said finally, his voice quiet. Claire nodded, understanding. That's all I ask. Outside, the wind stirred the golden leaves on the sidewalk. Inside, something had shifted. Not a rescue, but the start of trust in the slow, reluctant opening of a man who'd learned to expect nothing, but maybe just maybe deserved everything. The apartment was small, 2 rooms peeling wallpaper and a flickering hallway light. Jared hadn't had the time or tools to fix, but it was clean. Jared had made sure of that the moment Claire called to say she'd be dropping by. Lily was already buzzing with excitement. "She's really coming here, Daddy." Jared gave a lopsided smile as he folded a clean kitchen towel. "She is, just to say hi." To us, Lily beamed. "I like her. She laughs at your jokes." "She's just being polite," Jared muttered, trying not to blush. When Claire arrived, she didn't comment on the neighborhood or the apartment. Instead, she crouched to Lily's level, holding out a small box. "I brought cookies. I heard you're a fan of anything with sprinkles." Lily gasped. "These are from that bakery. The one with the pink chairs," Claire winked. "Only the best for you." Over the next hour, the three of them sat at the cramped kitchen table, Claire with her tea, Jared with instant coffee, Lily with warm milk. The cookies didn't last long. Claire asked Lily about school, her favorite colors, her music. And every time Lily spoke, Jared watched with something between awe and apprehension. He wasn't used to anyone taking this much interest in their lives. After Lily went to her room to draw, Claire turned to him. "You've done a beautiful job, Jared." He chuckled softly. "You say that like you've never met a tired single dad before." She gave him a look, quiet, steady. "I've met tired, but I haven't met this kind of love. It shows in everything." Jared shifted uncomfortably, then looked away. Compliments made him uneasy. They always felt like praise for something that was simply survival. Claire sipped her tea. "You know, when I lost my brother, I stopped visiting people. Stopped letting anyone in. It was easier that way." Jared glanced up. She continued, voice softer now. "But I didn't realize how lonely I'd gotten. And then I saw you at the diner, and something about the way you looked at your daughter, it reminded me what real connection looks like." The room was still. Jared said nothing, but his shoulders softened. It wasn't just him opening the door. She had opened hers too. When she stood to leave, Lily hugged her tightly. Jared followed her to the door, unsure how to say everything he was feeling. "You didn't have to come," he said, voice low. "I know," she replied, "but I wanted to." Then before walking down the hall, she added, "This doesn't have to be a favor, Jared. It can just be a beginning." And just like that, the door stayed open in more ways than one. It started with a cough, nothing serious at first, just a tickle in Jared's throat as he walked Lily to school, a little fatigued during his late shift at the gas station. He brushed it off like he did everything else. He couldn't afford to be sick. But by Friday night, his skin was clammy, his joints ached, and his vision blurred under the buzzing lights of the station. He leaned on the counter as a customer waited. The world seemed to tilt slightly to the left. "You good man?" the customer asked, half concerned, half impatient. "Yeah," Jared croaked. "Just tired." When he got home, he barely made it to the couch. Lily curled up beside him, her tiny hand brushing his forehead. "Daddy, you're burning." He smiled weakly. "I'll be fine, bug. Just need some sleep." But by morning, his fever had spiked. He was shivering, soaked in sweat, barely able to sit up. Lily stood near the door holding her backpack. "Do I still go to piano, Daddy?" Jared tried to nod, tried to stand, but the room spun and his knees buckled. Lily screamed. An hour later, Claire stood in the doorway of his apartment, the panic still raw in her eyes. She'd gotten Lily's call, or rather voicemail, a confused, trembling message. "Miss Claire, my daddy fell down and he's not waking up good. I don't know what to do." Claire dropped everything. Now a neighbor helped lift Jared to the couch while Claire knelt beside him, checking his pulse, brushing his damp hair back. "You should be in a hospital," she said, voice tight with worry. "No money," Jared rasped. "No time. You're burning up. I can't lose work." "Rent's due." Claire looked at him, truly looked at him. The stubborn pride, the exhaustion, the fear. "I'm not asking," she said, dialing her driver. "You're going. And I'm staying with Lily." "No." "Yes." He tried to protest, but the strength had left him. And in that moment, Jared realized something even more frightening than the fever. Someone else was stepping in, and he had no choice but to trust them. As the car pulled away with Jared in the back seat, Lily clung to Claire's hand. "Will he be okay?" Claire knelt beside her. He's strong, but he always says strong people don't ask for help. Claire gave a soft smile. Sometimes being strong means knowing when to let someone help. Jared had never liked hospitals. The sterile white walls, the beeping machines, the way time seemed to stretch endlessly between meals and medication, it all made him feel caged. But this time was different. When he opened his eyes after nearly a full day of sleep and IV fluids, the first thing he saw was Lily curled up in a plastic chair, coloring quietly, and beside her, Claire. She looked up from her phone and met his gaze, standing quickly. "Hey," she said gently. "You're awake," Jared blinked. His throat was dry, but he managed a raspy, "You stayed?" Claire nodded. "Of course." Lily jumped up, rushing to the bed. "Daddy, they said you had a fever monster, but Miss Claire made it go away." He smiled faintly. "Sounds about right." Later, when Lily was escorted to the hospital playroom by a nurse, Jared turned to Claire. "You didn't have to do all this." Claire pulled the chair closer to his bed. "You keep saying that. Because it's true. I should have handled it myself." "You tried to," she said softly. "And it nearly broke you." He looked away ashamed. Claire leaned in, her voice warm but firm. "You're not weak for needing help. You're human. And Lily, she needs you whole. Not just pushing through every day on fumes." Silence stretched between them for a moment before Jared finally asked, "Why are you doing all this?" Really, Claire's expression softened. "Because I've been alone. Because I know what it's like to watch someone you love hurt and feel powerless. And because I care. About Lily. About you." The honesty in her voice left him no place to hide. The next few days passed slowly but gently. Claire took charge where Jared had always struggled alone, picking up Lily from school, restocking the fridge, even sitting with Jared through long, boring hours in the hospital. At first, he protested every gesture, but eventually he stopped. By the time he was discharged, walking slowly but with color back in his face, something had shifted, not just in his body, but between them. Claire stood beside him outside the hospital doors as Lily ran ahead, chasing pigeons on the sidewalk. "You're not alone anymore," Claire said quietly. He looked at her. She wasn't offering pity. She was offering presence. Maybe for the first time, that was something he could accept. The small auditorium was packed with folding chairs, excited parents, and the occasional squeal of a younger sibling. Jared sat in the middle row, adjusting the camera app on his phone nervously. His button-down shirt was neatly ironed, Claire had insisted, and Lily, somewhere behind the stage curtain, wore a borrowed white dress with tiny blue flowers. Her very first piano recital. "Is this seat taken?" Claire's voice pulled him from his anxious focus. He turned to see her holding a coffee in one hand and a cardigan draped over her arm. Her eyes sparkled with something between pride and nerves, the kind only someone deeply invested would carry. Jared smiled and gestured to the empty chair beside him. "Not at all. I was hoping you'd come." Claire sat down, smoothing the fabric of her skirt. "I wouldn't miss it." The lights dimmed and the host stepped on stage. One by one, small children with varying degrees of confidence took their turns at the piano. Some stumbled, others raced, all of them were met with applause. Then the announcer said, "Next we have Lily Thompson playing Twinkle Twinkle Variations." Jared's heart caught. Lily walked out, hands clasped nervously, but her eyes scanned the crowd until she found her father and then Claire. She beamed. Claire gave her a small, two-fingered wave. Jared squeezed her hand instinctively. He hadn't even realized he was holding it until then. Lily sat down, took a breath, and began to play. Her fingers moved slower than she had at home. A few notes wobbled, but she kept going. When she reached the final flourish, her hands paused midair, then slowly fell to her lap. Applause erupted. Jared stood clapping harder than anyone. Claire followed, tears in her eyes. Backstage, Lily ran into his arms, nearly knocking him off balance. "Did I mess up?" Jared crouched to her level, cupping her cheeks. "You were perfect." Claire stepped forward with a bouquet of sunflowers. "And brave," she added. "Very, very brave." Lily lit up. "Are these for me?" "They're for our little star," Claire said with a wink. That night, over takeout and laughter in Jared's tiny apartment, Lily placed the flowers in a plastic cup and set them proudly in the center of their table. It was the first time in a long while their home felt full, not of things, but of something far more lasting. Joy. The air in the office smelled faintly of fresh paint and brewed coffee, a small luxury Jared hadn't had in his last job. Sunlight spilled across the desks through high windows, and the walls were adorned with cheerful minimalist art. It didn't feel like survival here. It felt like possibility. Jared adjusted his tie in the reflection of a glass door labeled Community Engagement and Programs Outreach Division. His nameplate wasn't up yet, but he already felt it. This was a new chapter. He hadn't taken Claire's offer directly. Instead, it came in the form of a recommendation passed quietly through her network. A few interviews, a background check, and suddenly he was managing logistics and local initiatives for a foundation that actually valued people. Benefits, paid time off, a salary he could breathe on. He called Claire the moment he got the official offer. "You're not going to believe it," he had said. "I already do," she replied. Now, a few weeks in, Jared felt a shift everywhere. Lily's lunches were packed without stress. Rent wasn't a question mark. He even bought a secondhand bike so she could ride beside him to school, a promise he'd made months ago and finally kept. One evening, they sat around their small kitchen table, pizza boxes open, homework spread out next to crayons, and Lily's recital program still pinned to the fridge. Claire stopped by with a bottle of sparkling apple cider and a grin. "To your new beginning," she said, raising her glass. Jared met her eyes, grateful, amazed, and still slightly stunned that this was real. "To everything that got us here," he said, "even the hard parts." Claire clinked his glass and glanced at Lily, especially the hard parts. Lily, holding her own tiny plastic cup, nodded solemnly. "Can I toast too?" They smiled and waited. "To Dad's new job," she said, "and to Miss Claire for always showing up." Jared looked down at his daughter, then back at Claire. His life wasn't just stabilizing, it was beginning to feel like something beautiful. It was a quiet evening, one of those rare nights when the city seemed to hush early. The three of them, Jared, Claire, and Lily, had just returned from a free outdoor concert at the park. Lily had fallen asleep in the car, clutching her glow stick and humming a tune even in her dreams. Jared carried her inside and tucked her in, then joined Claire on the front steps of the small duplex he now rented. They sat in silence for a while. The porch light flickered softly, casting warm halos around them. Claire looked down at her coffee, then at the quiet street. "Can I tell you something?" she asked. Jared glanced over, surprised by her tone. "Of course, I wasn't always—" "This," she said, waving vaguely at herself, the stylish coat, the polished ease, the quiet confidence. Jared didn't interrupt. "My father died when I was 9, she continued. "Heart attack. Sudden. My mother spiraled. We lost everything, the house, the car, any stability we had. There were nights we ate crackers for dinner. I remember pretending I wasn't hungry so Mom wouldn't cry." She looked down. "It's funny. You never really forget what it's like to go without. Even now, I eat slowly, like I'm afraid the food might run out." Jared's chest tightened. "I know that feeling," he said quietly. Claire smiled sadly. "I watched my mother take 2 jobs and wear shoes with holes so I could have new ones. And I promised myself that if I ever got out, if I ever had enough, I'd look for people like her. People like you." Jared was quiet, letting her speak. "I see you, Jared. I see the way you care for Lily, the way you sacrifice, the way you don't complain." She looked at him, now her voice steady. "And I know what a case." He cleared his throat. "You didn't have to help me. You didn't even know me or—" Claire gave a soft laugh. "No, but I knew the story. I'd lived it from the child's side. I never forgot the man at the next table who didn't offer help. I still remember his watch." Jared looked at her, heart heavy. "I saw you skipping dinner that night," Claire said. "And I saw Lily smiling at her plate, completely unaware. It broke me. In a good way." They sat there a while longer, sharing stories, quiet, aching true. Jared had always assumed Claire had lived a different kind of life, one untouched by hardship. But now her presence made more sense, the way she never made him feel pitied, only seen. By the time they stood to head back inside, something had shifted between them. Not romance, not yet, but something rooted and real. Trust, shared history, quiet understanding. New ground. The first time it felt like more than friendship was almost accidental, a fleeting moment, small and unspoken. Claire had stopped by late one Friday with takeout from their favorite Thai place. Lily had just finished painting a glittery sign that read, "Best Dad Ever" for school, and Jared was washing brushes in the sink when Claire set the food down and laughed. Did she get more paint on the paper or herself? She asked, picking up a dripping brush. Jared chuckled, wiping his hands. At this point, I think she is the art. They stood shoulder to shoulder, rinsing brushes and passing paper towels, and when their hands touched just briefly, something hung in the air. Neither of them spoke about it, but both felt it. After dinner, Lily dozed off on the couch while watching a movie. Jared tucked a blanket over her ear and returned to the kitchen to find Claire still there sipping tea at the table. Want to sit? She asked. He nodded, easing into the chair across from her. The room felt quiet, intimate. You've been different lately, Claire said after a pause. Jared tilted his head. Different how? Lighter, she said softly. Less braced for the next hit. It suits you. He offered a tired smile. Stability's new for me. Still trying it on. Claire smiled too, but her eyes lingered on him. You're doing better than you think. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It pulsed with something unspoken, something blooming slowly between two people who'd learned not to rush trust. Then Jared asked quietly, are you doing okay? Claire seemed surprised by the question. She looked down, then back up. Yeah, I think I've been waiting a long time to meet people who make me feel grounded. Real. Jared held her gaze. You've always been real to me. The room grew still. Claire's breath caught slightly. You're not just a good father, Jared. You're, she hesitated, a good man. Jared leaned forward, his voice low. And you've been more than a friend to me, Claire. More than you realize. She didn't pull away, neither did he. And for a moment, everything they had both guarded, every wall, every unspoken hurt, softened. They didn't kiss that night, but something passed between them. A shift, a knowing. When she left, she paused at the door, looked back at him, and smiled in a way that said, we're not just friends anymore. And Jared finally quietly let himself hope. Jared stood by the window of their sumptuous home, watching Lily run barefoot across the small yard, chasing bubbles, with the kind of laughter only a child can produce. Claire sat on the steps with a lemonade in hand, sunglasses perched on her nose, smiling with the kind of ease Jared had grown to adore. It was the first time in years he could remember feeling this calm. No overdue bills pinned to the fridge, no empty cupboards, no secret bruises of shame from skipping meals. Just a summer evening, warm and alive with the sound of his daughter's joy and a woman he'd grown to care for more than he ever expected. He joined Claire on the steps. She's happy, he said. She's thriving, Claire corrected gently. Because of you. Jared gave a soft chuckle. Because of us. Claire looked at him. You know, I used to think stability was about money, control, having answers. She shrugged. Now I think it's about people, about choosing the kind of life where you wake up and know who you can count on. Jared turned toward her fully. So what do we do now? She didn't hesitate. We build something together. It was the first time either of them had said it so clearly, the idea that this wasn't temporary, that their paths hadn't just crossed but merged. I'm not good at long-term plans, Jared admitted. I used to think planning ahead was just tempting disappointment. Claire reached for his hand. You don't have to have every answer. Just take the next step, and then the next. That night, after Lily was tucked in after they'd read her a new bedtime story, and Shed whispered, I love you both. Half asleep, Jared and Claire sat on the back porch with a notepad between them. They wrote a few small things: start saving for Lily's college, build her a piano nook, find a family dog, take a trip to somewhere with snow, learn to cook something fancy, say yes to love and mean it. It wasn't a business plan. It wasn't a 5-year projection. It was a future built on trust, healing, and quiet, deliberate joy. And it started right there with two people and one incredible little girl choosing something new, something whole. The table was full of food, of laughter, of stories halfway told. Jared sat at one end, a plate of roasted vegetables, fresh bread, and lemon garlic chicken in front of him. Claire was across from him, her eyes sparkling as Lily retold the story of how she convinced a billionaire to eat pancakes. Everyone laughed, including Mrs. Adler, their elderly neighbor who'd brought homemade peach pie, and Marcus, Jared's new coworker at the community center, who was trying to balance 2 cornbreads in one hand and a baby in the other. It wasn't a fancy place, just a long table in the backyard under strings of warm lights. But to Jared, it felt like a palace. He wasn't pretending to be okay anymore. He was okay. There was enough food for everyone and enough chairs. And for the first time in a long time, Jared didn't feel like a man who had to sacrifice his share. Tonight he ate with his daughter. Not after her, not in secret, not with guilt. He ate with her and with friends who had become something closer to family. Claire leaned in quietly, brushing her fingers against his. You remember that night at the diner? Jared smiled. Hard to forget. You looked like a man who would never take a full plate for himself. And now she whispered, you look like a man who finally believes he deserves one. Lily climbed into his lap mid-sentence, curling up with a bread roll and a grin. Best dinner ever. Jared kissed the top of her head, holding her close. The lights above them swayed gently in the summer breeze. The voices around the table continued, soft, loud laughing, overlapping. No one was in a rush to leave. It was just a meal. But for Jared, it was everything he'd worked for. A promise kept, a hunger healed, a shared meal, and a new beginning, one he no longer had to face alone.